back to Demigod Debut. I'm Mal, the only host of this podcast who is caught up on the lore of the Percy Jackson universe, and right now this is a podcast where I get to read Wrath of the Triple Goddess for the first time. This one is a solo episode, so prepare to hear just me talking for an undetermined amount of time. I thought it would be fun to go chapter by chapter and do predictions and things like I usually make Julie do, since this is finally a book that I haven't read yet. Much to cover since I'm trying to do a whole book in one episode, so let's get started. Okay, so the plan is to start each chapter with a prediction, read the chapter, and then come back and share my thoughts. So, chapter 1 is I have an accident in the principal's office. So, sounds to me like we're about to have another burning down the school situation. Alright, so we start with the lines, October, the best month ever. I'm with him here, I love the fall. And then I wouldn't be me if I don't get bogged down in like weird details in the beginning, but I'm just very curious why, if he lives on 104th Street, why his go-to food cart would be on 86th. That's a long way away for New York. And why are they selling pumpkin spice burritos? Ugh. It is unclear where Percy lives, because in The Lightning Thief he lives at 104th and 1st, and then they move to possibly the west side because he's taking the 2 train to school. And then in Trials of Apollo is looking for him in the Upper East Side again, and then he says in Chalice that their feet are dangling over 104th Street, so who's to say where he actually lives, but I'm gonna go with 104th Street just because our most recent canon to this, Chalice of the Gods, said 104th Street, so I'm going 104th Street. Anyway, it doesn't actually matter, why is his go-to food truck so far away? So it seems like Percy has had a quiet couple of weeks, but because of the Harris shenanigans and missing a bunch of school, he now has to take weekend classes, which truly might be one of the most cruel things Rick has ever made him endure. And Percy keeps falling asleep in class and jolting awake saying the theme is free will versus fate, which kind of makes me wonder if we're going to see that explored in this book, or if it's just a silly little joke about English class. I guess we'll see. Also, the bit about driving in New York being harder than a quest really makes me feel seen. I hate to drive here. Then his aunt is here to pick him up, and he doesn't have a mortal aunt, and Eudora is acting scared, so sure signs that some godly shenanigans are happening. And turns out it's Hecate, and she's hypnotized the secretary and the principal. And, okay, her first words to him being, "You may continue to stand." Queen. She is that bitch, and I love this. And her introducing herself by all her nicknames, and Percy just going, okay, and... my poor boy, he's so done, and I can't blame him. And, she finally says she's Hecate, and I love Percy's choice of words here, saying, I know of her work, joining Kronos in the Battle of Manhattan, then teaching Hazel to defeat a giant and use the mist. And I'm hoping that since we get Hazel mention, we're gonna get Hazel in this book. I want to see her. I miss my girl. Hecate apparently has been telling the other gods not to give Percy quests, which is kind of annoying, because he could have been done by now, and she also says no dual credit either for this one, and the book consumer in me thinks, yay, 3rd quest, 3rd book, but Percy Jackson is my son and my best friend, and the part of me that wants to defend him from all bad things is a little pissed. It turns out the quest is pet sitting over Halloween. She's at least nice enough to let him include Annabeth and Grover, though she does call them by the wrong names, and she tells him to come to an address near Gramercy Park to get all the deets. And Gramercy Park is a really interesting location because it's a private park. I've never been able to go inside because it's a park in New York, one of 2, I think, that the really rich people that own buildings around the park get, keys to, so they're the only ones who can access this park. But, I guess if someone is going to have keys to a private park in Manhattan, it would be a goddess. And Percy's lack of enthusiasm here really makes her mad, and she goes all triple goddess, splits into the maiden, the mother, the crone. Iconic, here for it. And the whole I am all the phases of a woman's life, all her power, I will suffer no man to cross me, literal girl boss. I love her. And then she brings out the animal heads, and I think Percy has pretty healthy respect for women, but every man needs to be humbled a little bit, I think. And, not to be a total lesbian, but Hecate, what are you doing after this? Can I come with you on your little Halloween adventure while Percy watches your pets? Anyway, queen behavior, love her. And if she scared Percy so bad he shit his pants, well, that just makes me like her more. Chapter 2 is Grover gets heavily caffeinated, and that just feels like typical Grover. I'm thinking of Looking for Pan Grover when he was drinking all that espresso, so I don't know what's different here. Grover Underwood, the satyr that you are. The cargo pants, the orange Crocs, the sweatshirt that just says human. What a fascinating fashion statement. And I do love that someone is excited about this quest because Percy is very much not. So they say they meet at the 103rd Street subway station. So if they are indeed in the Upper East Side, that means they're probably taking the 6 train, but there are 2 other 103rd Street stations on the West Side, so they could be taking the B or the C, or they could also be taking the 1 from their respective 103rd Street stations. And you know I love a subway deep dive, so had to mention that. They do head to Sally's favorite cafe, which sounds adorable, and I really think I need to find a good local coffee shop like this, because this seems like a delight. And the moment where Percy says that he hopes his mom isn't writing a character about him because the idea of someone, like, putting him in a book, it makes him paranoid. Oh, buddy, perhaps you're paranoid for good reason. So they get to fill in Sally, they get their food, and I love that Grover just goes nuts for anything strawberry. He's like Julie, she likes anything strawberry. And then Sally's reaction to finding out that Haggerty's mansion is near Gramercy Park is intriguing because she says she hasn't been there in a while, but with it being a private park, I can't think of a lot of reasons why Sally would have been in the park itself unless she was involved in some godly nonsense. Maybe it has something to do with Poseidon? But the thing that really gets me is the fact that Percy says that she says Gramercy Park the way he says Tartarus, and that feels huge because I know there are complaints to be made about the way that the Tartarus trauma has been addressed in canon, or not addressed, but it is still like one of, if not the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to Percy Jackson, and so for him to make that comparison, like, it just feels like we should be taking these feelings that Sally has really seriously. Maybe something dangerous happened to Percy when he was a kid, and that's like the most traumatic thing Sally's ever been through. I don't know. I'm hoping we get some good Sally lore out of this. She tells him to be careful. We also get a second Hazel mention when they start talking about how Hecate is the goddess of manipulating the mist. And I think, like, we have to be getting at least an Iris message with Hazel. Please. Please. I will be shocked if we don't see Hazel in any way, shape, or form. That's all I've got for this one. Chapter 3 is My Girlfriend Takes Me to the Graveyard. The only graveyards I can think of are like Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn and then some churches in Manhattan that people are buried at. It's probably some kind of church because I don't think they go all the way to Brooklyn, but guess we'll see. So Percy goes and finds Annabeth in the library at her school, and I just love that he's made friends with the security guard, so she just lets him in. And there's so much great stuff here. We've got Annabeth's new friends, Dave and Hannah, her Dutch braids, her Doc Martens, but them being new Doc Martens, though, oh, I know her feet hurt. And then the way he talks about her, Percy is truly just the most down bad dude of all time. Like, the way that he talks about the split second he saw her before he recognizes her and then is, like, delighted that she's his girlfriend, and the slight angst about him seeing her have other friends, and the way he says that she would succeed whether he's there or not, that makes him even more determined to graduate and go to college with her. Oh, buddy, we need to unpack all of that. His self-esteem is truly a marvel. Like, him saying, all I can do is make water coolers explode and talk to walruses. Percy, I need you to be so for real right now. I don't think we will, but I want to unpack this. I want Percy and Annabeth to have conflict about this. This way that he feels so undeserving of her, as if he didn't throw himself into super hell to be with her. I want to explore this so bad, but I don't think Rick's gonna go down that road. Then his assessment of Annabeth as a natural people person is interesting too, because I think it's definitely true now, but I don't think that that was always the case. Like, Annabeth early in the series was kind of insufferable and didn't seem to have many friends, but I think she definitely grew into herself once she kind of had more life experience. But I also think, like, Percy was a big part of her growing into this natural people person, and I just don't think that he sees how much he changed her for the better the way he sees all the ways that, like, she's made him better, you know? Also, Annabeth's new friend Hannah is in love with her. It is a sure sign that a woman is sapphic when she's unimpressed by Percy Jackson. See Piper McLean. Then I love that they're redesigning the Met, because I feel like the Met is kind of poorly designed. I can never find anything in there, and this is not just because I spent like an hour wandering trying to find the Perseus statue from the TV show. Glass and marshmallow sounds lovely. And not just because I, like Percy, tend to focus on things that are tasty. Then I guess I was right that it's a church graveyard because it's apparently where Peter Stuyvesant is buried, which is St. Mark's Church, and Annabeth is also excited about this quest because she wants to throw a Halloween party. And this is proof that Annabeth and Percy take turns with the brain cell, because what? I'm all for Annabeth getting to be an irresponsible teen and design her dream haunted house, but this feels crazy. God, they're about to have this Halloween party and accidentally let the pets loose in the city, aren't they? That feels right. Though I am very curious who's on the guest list for this party. I'm excited to find out. I hope we see some old friends. Chapter 4 is Turns Out I Am Salmon Flavored, and this just makes me think of a cat treat, so maybe one of Hecate's pets likes the way Percy tastes. Ugh, I hate that we start this one with grasshopper pizza. Annabeth is truly coming up with some of the most insane ideas this book. I love her, but this is horrifying. And Percy does mention that Gramercy Park is a private park and that a bunch of rich people live there. And he's so real for the take that Manhattan has much better parks that are bigger and free. And I love that the house is an optical illusion. That feels right. And I love that Grover somehow stocked up for the mission by working with the New York City Rats, because if there is any demographic in the city that befriending would give you the power to take over the city, it is rats. And I hope they provide some kind of important role here, and this isn't just a one-off thing, because Grover working with the rats is so fascinating. Then we have the talking door knockers, which I love, speaking truth, speaking lies, and then just randomness. They also meet Hecuba, who turns out to be the one who wants to know if Percy is salmon flavored, and I want to know what Annabeth means when she says that's kind of his flavor. Is kissing a son of Poseidon salmon flavored? Also, there's a Leo mention. Like, it says he's been tutoring Percy in Spanish, or implies that he's been tutoring Percy in Spanish. Is this another classic continuity error? Because at this point, isn't he still missing and presumed dead? Like, doesn't he not show up until the first Trials of Apollo book? I mean, this may have also been after he sent his little message saying that he was alive, but it feels like the wrong tone to mention Leo in if he's not even back in person. So, I don't know. Then Percy says the inside reminds him of a medieval church, and he knows what that is because he saw Spamalot once. And I just want to know, did Percy see the most recent revival on Broadway? Because I saw it, and I thought, it was just okay. And Percy's pessimism so far is fascinating. Like, he's never been an optimist, but the way he looks at the chandelier and thinks about it inevitably landing on him, because the more likely it is that something will hurt, the more likely it is that it will happen. Ugh, my poor boy. Then we meet Gale again, and it's kind of wild that Percy doesn't know Gale and her farts already, since we do, but, you know, he had more important things to worry about, being in Tartarus and all. And then Hecate charging them 3 drachmas for a tour is wild, given that they're doing her a favor here. She says something about how the eels won't feed themselves, so there are more pets that they have to worry about. Chapter 5, we enter the laboratory of forbidden ice cream. I feel like it can't actually be ice cream, it's gonna be a potion or something. Okay, I hate to say it, since I ended last chapter talking a little bit of crap about the eels, but I kind of love them. I love the way they immediately start lying to Percy, trying to get more food, and also I love the way that Hecate is absolutely not ready to host guests, because they don't even have bathrooms. They can't use the bedrooms. What are we doing? And I love that Hecate mentions that it used to be a magic school, and Percy's like, well, that sounds crazy. I'm obsessed with the implication that Harry Potter does not exist in this universe, or maybe that Percy is just not aware of it. And then the fact that Hecate says they don't talk about the magic school if they want to stay a happy family? What happened here? I do appreciate that Hecate doesn't seem to be gatekeeping her knowledge, like she tells Annabeth she can use the library. I feel like that's going to come in handy when things start to go astray. The kitchen is also excellent, lots of brewing and potions and things, and it's apparently the site of the filming of The Great Witch's Brew-Off. If that's anything like Bake Off, I'm sure that's got to be a great time. And then I was kind of right with my prediction. There's a strawberry ice cream potion, and now the detail about Grover going nuts for strawberry things a couple chapters ago makes sense. He is absolutely going to drink that. Chapter 6, Raw Chicken Carcasses and Where to Find Them. I'm gonna guess that Hecuba eats raw chicken and not like grocery store chicken, so they're gonna have to go find some chickens to feed her. And now all that's making me think of is a return to heebie-jeebies, but I don't think we're gonna do that. I love how Percy's complaining that there are so many rules, and then it's mostly just regular things you need to know about taking care of someone's pets. Like, sure, they're a little different because it's a hellhound, like how she can't go on walks past Pennsylvania, but taking a dog on walks is part of the pet sitting experience, Perseus. And Percy and Grover are confused, and Hecate, of course, turns to Annabeth and is like, your friends are idiots. I'm so glad they have a smart young woman like yourself. And you know what? She's right. And Hecate keeps mentioning this magic school that she used to run here, and I just think that if she still had that, Annabeth would be getting yet another invitation to join a badass lady group, like the way that she was invited to stay and learn from Cersei. Okay, wait. This is me a little bit just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks, but what if Sally is tied to this magic school in some way? Since she has this negative experience in Gramercy Park. I don't know, maybe I just want all women to have cool powers, but I think Sally Jackson would make a great witch. Like, Sally Jackson raised Percy, she can do anything. Then Hecate warns them not to let the pets out without leashes, and they're about to do exactly that. And it turns out it's Gale that eats the raw chicken carcasses, not Hecuba, and it's a little bit horrifying. Hecate also leaves them with a set of torches that are apparently her symbols of power and are only to be used in an emergency, so can't wait to see what that is. And now they have to do this until Friday, and I'm kind of wondering if they're going to be there the whole time or if they get to leave for school during the day. Guess we'll find out. Chapter 7 is I Go Dog Skiing, and I just know Hecuba is about to drag Percy to Pennsylvania. You know, I love when immediately one of my questions is answered just by reading more, because Percy tells Gale and Hecuba he can't walk them all the way to Pennsylvania because he and Annabeth have school. Love to see them prioritizing that education. God, Hecuba and Gale really sound like my family's dogs on a walk. Like, they absolutely lose their minds at the idea, and then you have to kind of chase them down and put their collars and leashes, and then they will absolutely drag you down the street. Like, our dog Bregman was absolutely a sled dog in a past life, like Hecuba seems to be, with the way she starts dragging Annabeth down the street, and then Percy takes a turn and also gets dragged down the street. I also love the comparisons to Mrs. O'Leary and how Percy thinks that Hecuba might be plotting and scheming, like in a way that Mrs. O'Leary is not, because she used to be human. And then, okay, the fact that Annabeth takes her shoes off post-walk is horrifying to me. No blister in the world would ever make me take my shoes off on a New York street. She's going to get so many diseases. And then Percy compares walking this dog to holding the sky, which is nuts. And I feel like Rick is playing with me, bringing up the gray streaks like this. Don't remind me what you took from me. I will never be over that. In my mind, their hair is still gray. Thank you. And then Percy sees a ghost. So this is a Halloween book for sure. I love it here. And it's a little boy on a bike, and I kind of wonder if this ghost has something to do with whatever Sally lore happened at the park, since Percy's the only one that sees it. Then they kind of set up camp for the night in the living room, and Percy's thinking about a campfire and wondering if the New York Fire Department would come, or if there was some godly fire brigade, and then thinking, hey, that might be a good career for me. And it just feels like Rick is reading the fanfics, because I feel like I've read that particular Percy career choice in several. We then close out this one with the bathroom situation, and really feels like a wild collection of places. And Grover bathing in the koi pond is odd, considering they could just take turns in the 2 regular showers, but alright. And then Percy's boilet joke is excellent. I did giggle. And Annabeth telling him he'd make a good dad because he's already got the jokes. I want to be like, aw, Percabeth parents, but all I can think is that Annabeth's only criteria for a good dad? Like, maybe she wouldn't have run away at 7 if her dad had made more jokes. No, that's bad, I'm sorry. Chapter 8 is Guess What? Weaselbutt, and this gives me nothing. This prediction thing is hard. I feel like maybe I should be nicer to Julie about her predictions. Okay, no, you know what? That chapter title has nothing to do with the actual chapter. Percy just says he gets a weaselbutt in his cereal bowl. Like, Rick just chose that because it's funny. And it is. It feels like they've got an excellent rhythm going here and an excellent plan to walk each other to school. And much like Percy is a pessimist, so am I, because this is a sure sign that things are about to go wrong. This is way too easy. And Percy even starts feeling optimistic about their chances. He's just like me. Like, I have one good morning and I'm like, oh, maybe life is worth living. And then this dropping Annabeth off at school scene has me in actual tears. The Percabeth kiss, them grabbing Grover and kissing his cheeks. My family is back together and I love them so much. I also appreciate the Queensboro Bridge mention because I've been spending a lot of time running over it lately because it's on the New York City Marathon route and I'm nervous about it. So I've been practicing it a lot since the New York City bridges are basically just like big long hills that suck to run on. But the pedestrian path on that bridge is so small, and it also like shares the same little section with the bike lane, so it's even skinnier than some of the other pedestrian paths on bridges in New York. You know, I just don't know that you could cross the Queensboro with a hellhound, but maybe we'll see it happen. Now, I do want to know why Eudora is so scared of Hecate. That's interesting. Also, I love Paul's system for homework, and also Percy's assessment that there are some things that teachers just assign because they feel like they have to, and they don't want to grade it any more than you want to do it. Percy's on to us. That's the realest thing I've ever heard. And I hate that everything is going so well just for everything to fall apart by the end, because Grover and Annabeth don't come to pick up Percy. But we do get some awesome new Riptide lore. Like, what do you mean he can write secret celestial bronze messages for other demigods? That's so cool. So if Percy walked or jogged all the way from school to Gramercy Park, it's like a 4-mile trip. So that probably took him at least an hour. And this, of course, is based on the location of the Hephaestus Building Supplies that is canonically near AHS, as of Chalice of the Gods. It is an actual place, and I did find a school building that matches kind of the description of AHS nearby, so just a fun fact for you. May be based on a real building. And of course, they returned to the house absolutely destroyed. I was out here stressed that the Halloween party was going to trash the house, but we didn't even have to have the party. We're just good like that. Chapter 9 is The Apocalypse Smells Like Strawberries, and he ate the friggin' ice cream, didn't he? I'm almost impressed with the damage that Grover did to this house, but I'm also so stressed because how the heck are they going to fix all of this? Also, Grover is huge. Kind of a missed opportunity to not have him hanging off the side of the Empire State Building like King Kong or something. Let him terrorize the city a little. I think that would be fun. I do appreciate that Percy and Annabeth aren't mad, or at least they're not taking out their anger on him. They just take care of him. But I'm a little mad. Grover's in his 30s at this point. He should know better. And Percy's showing a lot of maturity here, actually. Recognizing that he and Annabeth also had a hand in this because they left Grover to fend for himself, and the way that he doesn't take his anger out on him. And I have to say, I'm becoming a bigger fan of the Eels. I like the way that they're not exactly on Percy's side, but they are willing to give him information. The way they keep asking to eat stuff is giving me Big George and Martha asking for rats vibes, which is fun. And then Percy referring to Midtown as the Wild, he's right. Especially Times Square. Honestly, I hope Hecuba is terrorizing Times Square because that would be really fun for me to read. And the idea that Hecate wouldn't just kill them, but would instead rewrite reality to just make them cease to exist, that's terrifying. The Mist is so fascinating when we get to the place of rewriting reality and not being sure what's real and what isn't. And I hope we get some more of this because I thought it was really interesting in Heroes of Olympus, when Hazel was using it. I don't know, I would just like to see more of how it works and cool ways that we can use it. And I really hope that we get some more lore on this bike kid that Percy keeps seeing. I hate that we end this one with Percy going off on his own, but I am excited for a potential return of Mrs. O'Leary. Chapter 10 is I Catch a Nope. I have nothing. This maybe is some kind of mythological creature I've never heard of. Oh my god, why are both Percy and I in tears over this tiny baby hellhound? This is the best thing Rick has ever done. This is my new favorite character of all time. I love that Percy called it his most ADHD move of all time, going out with a dog to find a dog and coming back with a completely new and different third dog. Incredible. No notes. And how we got here is also incredible. The dog whistle from Leo. When did he have time to make that? The fact that it lights up a rainbow when you blow it and says Leo plus Percy forever. If you follow the pod on social media, it's at Demigod Debut Pod pretty much everywhere. You might have seen the bingo card I made, and I did in fact put gay stuff as one of my boxes, and I kind of feel like this counts. This is one of the most homoerotic things I've ever read. Teenage boys are crazy. And I love getting to see Miss O'Leary do her little jealousy thing that Percy has been hanging out with another dog. Classic. And then the puppy! Percy is so gentle and sweet, and Nope is so sad and pathetic. I'm gonna start sobbing right now. Chapter 11 is We Have Pizza with Extra Tears, and clearly they are also crying over the new dog. Oh wait, are we gonna get some more Annabeth-induced dog tears, like how she cried when she had to leave Cerberus? I love that Nope just immediately pees on both Percy and Annabeth and then tells Grover that since he peed on Percy, he's his. Adopting a puppy is a huge step in any relationship, and so I'm glad we get to witness this Percabeth milestone. You know that scene from Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Rosa gets a puppy and she says, I've only had him for a day and a half, but if anything happened to him, I'd kill everyone in this room and then myself? Yeah, that is me with Nope, and if anything happens to him, I will be hunting Rick Riordan for sport. Also, obsessed with Percy's tornado shower. What an insane thing. And then I'm picturing him with hair that's sticking out for the rest of this chapter. So, great. Love it. Then when Annabeth starts listing times that Percy has messed up, trying to make Grover feel better, I really don't think it's fair for Annabeth to blame him for the nosebleed that woke Gaia when her blood was also used. And nosebleeds are no joke. My brother used to get really bad ones, and I have a very vivid memory of going into our bathroom in the middle of the night one night and finding him in his pajamas covered in blood, still actively bleeding, standing over the toilet. Like, the nosebleed that almost ends the world is funny, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a time that Percy messed up. Then Grover saying we're going to die, but at least we'll die with a puppy is such a good take. Way to find the positives. And the Halloween party is still going on as scheduled, which is crazy. Percy is going back to school tomorrow while Annabeth researches and Grover cleans, and there's a couple of things at the end here that absolutely killed me. First, Percy was noting the exhaustion and anxiety on Annabeth's face and thinking that she used to be better at hiding it when they were younger, or maybe he just didn't know her as well then. Ugh, they are the most soulmates to ever soulmate, because I think it's both things. I think he knows her better now, but also she doesn't feel the need to hide how she's feeling from him anymore. Ugh, I just love them. And then the second is the whole bit about how eventually their luck has to run out. Like, you can only flip the coin so many times before it comes up tails and you lose. The pessimism in this book is just really striking. And when I get back to the original books, I want to be on the lookout to see if I've just overlooked some of that negativity and pessimism, because it's really making me anxious that maybe this is the time that things aren't going to work out. And it's definitely an interesting thing to feel in a book that's essentially a prequel to the Trials of Apollo. Like, we know how this story ends, and yet, there's still a part of me that's like, what if it goes wrong this time? Just because of how pessimistic they're being. Chapter 12 is I get schooled by an old friend. I'm thinking someone from camp, or maybe Hazel here to teach us something about Hecate. I really want Hazel. You know, you could have given me 1,000 guesses for who would show up in this chapter, and Mr. Brunner would not have been one of them. But it's very funny the way that Percy immediately is like, what year is it? Did I do my Latin homework? And I love that Paul apparently got Chiron a job as a substitute, which is incredible. Schools always need more substitutes. And Chiron actually gives Percy answers here, which is wild. And the chronic pain Chiron lore, excellent. I'm glad we brought that in here. The torches summoning angry ghosts that do Hecate's bidding is interesting. Maybe we have to get Nico and some McDonald's here, and then Nico's ghosts can fight Hecate's ghosts. But then if her ghosts are the choices that haunt us, I kind of hope that they use the torches and we explore that because, well, I love angst. And I feel like it would kind of be like the Eri in Tartarus with the curses. Do you see the vision? And the idea that Hecate is intentionally testing them, mentioning how Annabeth is probably exploring the library right now. Get out of there, girl. That cannot be good. Also, is anyone else getting a bit of an ex-girlfriend's vibe from Hecate and Eudora? Just me? I don't know. Anytime anyone says ... complicated history, I'm immediately like, oh, they're exes. They were in love. Hecuba's backstory is interesting as well, and this idea of playing into her maternal instincts and using Nope, I'm excited to see where that goes. Chapter 13 is I Get Extra Time and Candy Corn, and this really just made me wonder if extra time is an accommodation that Percy gets at school, because a lot of times students with learning differences get that accommodation as part of their IEP, and Chiron did mention there being a quiz. It's probably not that, but that's what I'm thinking about. Okay, so turns out it's extra time for the quest, which, great. I was a little worried that they were going to have this Halloween party on Halloween, and Hecate was going to show up in the middle of the party, but now they have till Saturday. And Nope has given them all nicknames. I love that Annabeth gets to be Mom, and then Grover and Percy are Chew Toy and Alley Boy. Feels right. And I do think it is too early in the book for their plan to find Hecuba to play out successfully, so I don't think they're gonna manage to get her in the next chapter. Chapter 14 is we find some dead guys, and I'm just campaigning for an appearance from one of my favorite Underworld siblings, so I hope the dead guys are with Nico and Hazel. Okay, so turns out they were Hecuba's dead guys. Interesting. And I'm super intrigued by the way that they could share emotions and memories with Percy, and the way he kind of snapped out of it, shouting, "Kill the Greeks." I don't know, the mind control is interesting. And God, gotta be one of the most Percy lines of all time. Quote, "I crawled to the curb and threw up, as you do when you're a hero," closely followed by, "I replied by running towards the screaming, as you do when you're a hero and you're done throwing up." Classic. Chapter 15, I fail at dog diplomacy. They will once again not be able to get Hecuba under control. We've still got a lot of chapters to go. I'm not worried. I think we'll eventually do it. I do not think that this is the chapter. God, Percy is so unserious. My sword is better at slashy, and I don't want a slashy, Annabeth. Okay. Annabeth also has an encounter with the dead guys, but she takes it better than Percy because women are strong and powerful. And then they try to convince Hecuba to calm down and come back to the house by being a little family with Nope. And then there's the moment where Grover looks at Percy and kind of is like, oh, Annabeth would be a great mom someday, which that's wild. That's wild. And Percy is right to be like, one thing at a time, please, Grover. Thank you. And it almost works, but Percy apparently can neither chew gum and breathe underwater, nor hold a baby hellhound while putting a leash on an adult hellhound. And I will say that the gum underwater thing, did get a giggle out of me. And Hecuba shadow traveling away with Percy and Nope did warrant a gasp from me. Wild. Chapter 16 is Hellhounds! At the disco. And I actually don't even care what happens in this chapter. The title is simply too good, but I feel like they will shadow travel to some kind of party. It's right there. Yep, German disco. And then a desert, and then a department store where Percy encounters a lot of underwear, and then they end up in what used to be Troy, and they get to have a little heart-to-heart. And when Percy gets cooking, he's unstoppable, because he starts talking about, his own losses, and how you just have to move on with the people that you have. And, she does agree to come back. And then, when he's back in New York and Annabeth hits him with a good job, hero, I love it here. And the forehead kiss is so sweet. Absolutely no one is doing it like them. Chapter 17 is Grover gets grounded. I'm kind of thinking Percy and Annabeth might go out and look for Gale and leave Grover with the dogs, but I don't know. Then again, leaving Grover alone is kind of what got us into this mess, so I don't know. If Percy wasn't already in love with her, then the bacon, egg, and cheese bagel she made him would have sealed the deal. Nobody talk to me. They are so in love. It's not news, but every time they say it, I'm like, OMG, they're in love. And then the news that Grover still has the wedding dress. Excuse me. If he puts that back on as his costume for the party, I will die. And finally, Percy gets to take a day off of school and spend some time in the library looking over Annabeth's notes on Gale, and then he gets to looking at the trinkets around, including a bunch of old contacts and broken glasses with a plaque that says what could have been. Creepy. That's horror movie stuff. And the glasses from the ghost that Percy's been seeing are there, and they have the initials S.E.J. on them. And Percy says he recognizes those initials. So I'm thinking it's gotta be someone we know, but there are only two characters I can think of who have a first name that starts with S, and that's Selena and Sally, and only one of them has a last name that starts with J. So is the ghost bike kid Sally? For some reason, I got it in my head that the bike kid was a boy. I think I even said it was a little boy the first time I talked about the bike kid. But I looked back and I don't think that the bike kid is ever referred to as a boy or a girl. So it may be on me for assuming. And it might be just what Rick Riordan wanted me to think to throw me off. So maybe I'm on to something here. Or maybe it's going to be really embarrassing when I am actually not at all. And then Grover grounding himself is literally just burying himself in the ground and then having a weird squirrel seance. I'm really into this power where he can connect with all the living things in Manhattan, but I am not so into the possibility of it making him dissolve into nothing. Yikes. But at least it does give them a place to start. Chapter 18 is I Smell Trouble, a new fragrance for men. Best I can guess is trip to a magical perfume shop where they get into trouble? What else is new? I love that Percy is so freaked out by the fact that this could literally make Grover dissolve that he makes a hydrant explode and blows a manhole cover off. Insane. I love accidental Percy power. Then Grover blaming himself for what happened and saying maybe he did it subconsciously because he's worried that he's gonna get left behind when they go off to college. I will cry right now. And I really love how they don't even consider not telling Annabeth what happened. That's called communication. Look it up. According to the squirrels, we're maybe going to find some naiads, and you know what? Percy is right about Lower Manhattan. I too hate when the grid disappears and I have to be glued to my map like a tourist. It's just embarrassing. And we're gonna go shopping for some perfume now, so fun! Chapter 19, Oops, I Killed You Again. We are either about to meet Britney Spears or someone that Percy has killed before. Okay, I was really confused about who this Naiad is supposed to be because she's acting like Percy wronged her. So I googled Aia, I think is how you say that, and realized that that's the name of Circe's island, and things made a little more sense. Okay, so she attacks them with some perfume, and then Percy is controlling poison again, as well as all the other bodily liquids, apparently, because he dehydrates himself and Grover. And this is a really interesting use of his powers, and I enjoyed it. And Percy is really pulling a Jace in this book because this is at least the second time that he's passed out. I really appreciated that when they go into the store, it's playing a violin version of So Yesterday, and Grover says he loves the song. What a callback. I miss the Hilary Duff bangers. And apparently there's some perfume potion conspiracy or something happening here. Who knows how deep it goes. There's apparently another place called Fancy Water, and that was Aia's competition. I would imagine that they're also making wild potion perfumes. Chapter 20, we get dangerously fancy. We are definitely about to almost die of Fancy Water. Quote, Fancy Water had as much foot traffic as I would have expected from a perfume shop called Fancy Water, meaning none. Dang, Percy. Grover also keeps calling Gale a weasel, and I'm starting to think that when they do find her, he's going to do that within her earshot, and it's going to make her mad and she's not going to come home with them because of it. Another quote, I tried to think. It wasn't easy without Annabeth to do 90% of it for me. Annabeth really took the brain cell with her for her project and just left her knuckleheads to fend for themselves. Annabeth, come back, we need you. Grover also better actually get Juniper a present, or so help me, I will end him. After the boyfriend that he was in Chalice of the Gods, he needs to step it up. And if this Naiad was also on Circe's island, I kind of like how Percy keeps having to face the consequences of that, because I think it's cool that it's not just we released some pirates on this island and everything was fine. No, there's a lot of people who are really mad about losing their home, and I'd love to see more consequences for things like this that happened in the original series. And this perfume is fascinating, the way that it just incapacitates Percy immediately. Maybe I would pay 1,000 drachmas for it. Chapter 21, Grover leaves a 5-hoof review. The hooves will save the day. I'm thinking kicking through a window and running away, possibly? Okay, so turns out the 5-hoof review is just Grover groveling as a distraction. Personally, I love when Percy is useless in a situation and someone else has to save him, and this is exactly that. The Naiads do in fact have Gale, so at least we know where she is. And now we have to go to another perfume shop. I'm getting a little tired of these. I hate to say it, but this section is really dragging for me. The bits are funny, but it feels like a lot of just going to different perfume shops. Probably because that's what it is. I do love the choice to have them just gift wrap Sylvie instead of killing her, and I especially love the choice to have Annabeth walk in on her idiots doing idiot things. Big fan of the gift wrapping as a distraction strategy as well, and I hope Percy gets to keep the blue bow on his forehead for multiple chapters. Chapter 22, Annabeth asks to see the manager. This really feels like it would require the same audacity that had Percy and Annabeth telling a primordial goddess in Tartarus that she must not be that important because she wasn't in their brochure. I hope we're channeling a similar unhinged audacity here. Okay, thank God Annabeth is here to explain what Aia is, and she's right, they definitely never used that name while they were there. I probably shouldn't have Googled it, that's my bad, but I saw the name and these people acting like Percy should remember, and I felt insecure about my knowledge. I'm sensitive about not remembering Percy Jackson things since I've made this in my entire personality. I can't forget parts. And Percy fondly remembering Annabeth's makeover and talking about how his little guinea pig jaw hit the floor. I love it. I actually need Percy and Grover as Spider-Man and Spider-Goat so badly. It's insane. Stupid Annabeth being scared of spiders is taking this from me. And the Halloween costumes that they do go with are giving she's absolutely beautiful and he's there. The callback to the Circe's Island makeover in her costume is inspired. Let Percy experience that one as a human this time. But also, I do wonder if it means that they're going to recognize her. Is that their goal? Because I would think, if anything, recreating this look would make it more likely that they remember her. And Percy and Grover as her gladiators/sidekicks, as if they aren't kind of already that without the costumes. Ugh, it's truly Annabeth's world, and we are all lucky to live in it. Not here for the body shaming from Grover, though. I've never met a teenage boy who is gladiator muscly, especially not a swimmer. But actually, all bodies are gladiator bodies if you put a gladiator costume on them. Same with bikinis. Thank you. Then Percy getting kind of jealous of the people on the street staring at Annabeth, saying they're lucky he doesn't poke them with his trident. Jealous Percy is back. And I love that we just right out the gate start with, Let me see the manager. That's wild. I do think Annabeth kind of has the pride to actually be like this, but not the entitlement. The only time I can think of her being entitled a little bit is when she really wanted the quest in The Lightning Thief, but even that was more just her being an annoying kid. And look, I am definitely anti-mistreating service workers, but I will allow it in this instance if they're keeping Gale hostage. We need Gale so that our favorite characters don't get literally written out of reality. That is still insane to me. What are the implications of that even? Like, do all the things that they've done get written out of reality as well? Does someone else get written in? Or would it be a situation where, like, if you get rid of Percy, then all of a sudden you live in a world where Kronos won? Like, I need answers here. I love an alternate universe. I love an alternate reality. I love messing with the timeline. And that plot line would just be so cool to me. I would eat it up. And then the twins immediately recognize Annabeth, which kind of thought they would, so win for me. Chapter 23, we find the lair of evil perfume. This feels a little self-explanatory. I hope there are more weird potion side effects like the spellbound one. Okay, great news everyone, I'm having fun again. Phew, maybe I just needed Annabeth at the other two perfume encounters. Honestly, more Annabeth at all times, please. You know, the mess with this whole magic school makes it even more interesting to me that Hecate decided to work with Hazel, especially the way that the Naiads are so shocked when Annabeth says she's working for Hecate, and I hope that they get to telling us more about this magic school's lore and what it has to do with SEJ or Sally Elizabeth Jackson? Taking a stab at the middle name there. It better be Sally. We better go and have a family dinner with Sally and let her explain how she almost became a witch. Please. Thank you. Also, free my girl Gale. Nobody deserves to work in these conditions, and by these conditions I do mean bees. I'm calling OSHA. And it's crazy how one little slip-up blows it all for Annabeth. Simply saying that she wouldn't tell Hecate blows a huge hole in her story. Ugh, and it was going so well, too. You hate to see it. Truly. She does say the book title here when she's threatening them with the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, though, which is always fun. And fun fact, I looked back at the original Percy Jackson books and the Heroes of Olympus books, and I only found two that don't say the name of the book within the book, and they are The Lightning Thief and The Lost Hero. I kind of thought Battle of the Labyrinth didn't say the title in the book either, but Percy says it in the literal last chapter, just in case you were wondering. Chapter 24, we have a nice, orderly free-for-all. This has to be where we get fun potion side effects. Please, I'm begging. Okay, Percy immediately going protective mode and controlling more potions is important to me. And there were several laugh-out-loud moments here for me. The first was when Percy was talking about not wanting to kill Daedra because it's easier to swing your sword at a minotaur or a 7-foot-tall demon bear, only for her to chug the potion and immediately turn into, you guessed it, a 7-foot bear. Yeah, I snorted. And Percy going from, I can't kill her, to murderous rage the second Annabeth is in danger. Cool. I feel regular about that. Then, when he steps in the potion, and it starts climbing up his leg, and Annabeth yells at him to step out of the shoe, and he goes, did she think I was dumb? Had I ever given her reason to... ... You know what? Forget I asked. I laughed. He does hurt his ankle, and I'm curious about the extent of this injury because a pop is never good. Are both members of Percabeth going to have a fighting monsters with a broken ankle thing? Annabeth's is infinitely more impressive, though. Tartarus with a broken ankle still blows my mind. And Percy also gets stung by the bees. Grover lights some recipes on fire. Annabeth punches a Naiad in the face. He wasn't joking about this being a free-for-all. And I am so interested to know what this white potion fog that Phaedra sends their way does. Like, does it just smell bad the way a beast's breath would smell? Does it turn them into beasts? I'm so excited to find out. Chapter 25. There ain't no cure for the beast breath blues. Whew, if you knew how many times that I had to re-record that because I could not get the words beast breath blues out. I don't even have a prediction for this one because I'm too focused on pronouncing beast breath blues. Yes, this is exactly the wacky potion nonsense I was looking for. Annabeth with the head of an owl, Percy with an octopus body, Grover with human legs. Grover with human legs is almost the worst because it's kind of the least funny. And Phaedra says there's no cure, which we all know can't be true because, like, could you imagine, like, we're just retcon all of Percabeth's future appearances? Like, Annabeth is in Boston looking for her cousin. Yeah, she actually had an owl head that whole time, and the book just didn't say that. Ridiculous. But the way that Percy's like, I don't like the idea of her having an owl head for the rest of her life, but I would try to make it work. nobody else better enter the loving your girlfriend competition because unfortunately Percy cannot be beat. And then once again it stresses me when Percy starts doing things on his own, not because I think he needs Annabeth to function, but because I just think they're stronger together. But I guess it worked with Hecuba, so maybe a one-on-one talk will work with Gale too before the place turns into a bottomless pit because of all the potion nonsense, of course. Chapter 26. Okay, there might be a cure, but you're not going to like it. It's absolutely something nasty. That's what I think. Percy's going to convince Gale to make them some potion, but it's going to be made of something really gross, like bugs or something. You know, Percy's emotional intelligence really doesn't get enough credit. His work here is inspired. Like, he said Annabeth is a natural people person, but I think he is too when he isn't convincing himself that he's not. I think Percy spent so long being told that he's dumb and not good enough that he internalized that and even started thinking those things about himself too. I almost wonder if part of the reason he and Annabeth are so different is because she ran away so young and met Thalia and Luke, who made her feel seen and important. And I think about Luke, like, giving her the knife and saying his whole thing about how knives are for the bravest and cleverest fighters and how formative that was for her, to the point that fighting with a dagger became her go-to because, she wanted to be brave and clever. And then Percy had Sally growing up, but she was obviously keeping something pretty huge from him. And plus she sent him off to all these boarding schools where people who don't love him like she does likely started telling him that he was stupid and making him feel that way. I mean, I think their childhoods played a huge role in the way that they think about themselves. Like, Annabeth was introduced to this world that she's meant to be in early, while Percy kept trying to fit into the quote-unquote normal world. I don't know. I don't want to get too off track here, but Percy's self-esteem is just fascinating to me. Anyway, Percy is really empathetic with Gale here, which is great to see. And same as with Hecuba, I like that he's kind of like, yeah, selfishly I want you to come back with me, but also you should be allowed to make your own choices. And when Percy talked about Hecate turning Gale into a polecat because she was jealous of her skills, I thought, oh, an Arachne situation. Interesting. But then apparently octopus tentacles have special emotion powers, and Percy can see her backstory play out, and it's heartbreaking. She's chased out of the city, the people are not a fan of her magic, and Hecate makes her make a choice, and the whole they'll never let you rise, the gods are men, both exchange, let women be powerful. So I guess the polecatting was kind of consensual because she had the option to either give up her magic, die, or live, but not as a human or god. But I don't really think she knew what that meant when she made the choice. Who knows if she would have made the same choice if she knew it would mean living as a polecat forever. Also, fun fact, this is the chapter that finally made me look up what a polecat looks like. We've known Gale for how long, and I'm just doing it now? Anyway, Percy gets to explore potion making and learning to stir with his octopus arms, and they make a paste that smells like cinnamon rolls, so if it tastes like cinnamon rolls, it's probably not as nasty as I thought it would be. And I love that they make it out just in time for, a little flair and drama. And I also love that Phaedra is yelling about getting vengeance, and Percy just kind of goes, okay, good luck, and leaves. Icon behavior. Chapter 27. We eat toothpaste. It seems like it's cinnamon roll potion time. Okay, Owlabeth and Octopercy sound like superhero names. I'm obsessed. And of course they only have 3 servings of potion. And of course it's kind of a horrifying experience, like Grover coughs up a toenail and Annabeth chokes on an owl pellet. And actually, I do want to know more about this owl pellet because I do owl pellets in school every year, and they're full of the things that owls can't digest, like bones and fur. But wouldn't Annabeth have a regular human digestive system since only her head is an owl head? Like, did she suddenly develop a proventriculus to be able to make owl pellets? So, like, what's the point of this owl pellet? I have questions. And also, apple shampoo? Apple shampoo? What alternate universe have I stepped into? Because Annabeth Chase smells like lemon shampoo. To my knowledge, it is only mentioned once in Battle of the Labyrinth that her hair smells like lemon shampoo, but that was enough for me to shape my image of Annabeth Chase around that. I, for real, actually did a double take when I read Apple. Like, could she have changed her shampoo since she was 15? Sure, but I hate it. Percy, however, is just on a streak of being like the best guy of all time because he keeps his word and offers Gale the last bit of the potion, and I half wish he would have taken it because dealing with Octopercy for the rest of this book would have been so funny. But no, he gets to return to fully human Percy because Gale is used to being a polecat, and also she wouldn't be immortal anymore if she was a person again, so win for everyone here, I guess. And the first thing they do when everyone is back to normal is group hug. Adorable. I did kind of predict that Percy would be turned into some kind of animal, but I was thinking it would be a little more along the lines of Sea of Monsters, where he was a small guinea pig, so I thought he was going to turn into another small little mammal, possibly another polecat, I don't know. So Octopus Percy was not on my bingo card. Chapter 28, As I Make a Bad Plan. Now, this could mean anything. Percy makes a lot of bad plans. Not bad because they don't work, but more bad because a lot of times they involve him trying to sacrifice himself. So I guess that's my prediction. Percy's bad plan involves trying to sacrifice himself. Our animal family is reunited. Our demigod family is getting pizza yet again. This is like the third time that they're having pizza, because there was the grasshopper pizza, and then they had pizza after they found Nope, and now they're having it again. And here's my hot take. I think pizza is fine. But if I'm looking for the tomato sauce, cheese, and carbs flavor, I would much rather have a marinara pasta than a slice of pizza. I also totally forgot Percy had hurt his ankle until he mentioned the ice pack. But now the plan is to use the torches to summon ghosts to fix the mansion, and also they're gonna have to leave Grover alone again because they have tests at school, and I'm with Percy here. Tests don't mean much when you're dead because you failed. And I wrote down this quote because I read it on my morning commute and it really spoke to me. Who had designed this system anyway? When do you get to chill on the beach and stop working? And don't tell me 67 unless you want to see a demigod cry. Because sometimes I think about getting up every morning and going to work for another 40 years, and I get real stressed. So the house is getting worse. Oh no, but Percabeth nighttime heart-to-heart is so important to me. I love to see them actually communicate, and I love that we're recognizing how good Percy is with people. The fact that they both had different visions is fascinating, and my current working theory is that this means that they're going to have to work together here because the power of teamwork and whatever, but also because I feel like the physical building is crumbling, but there's also a lot of relationships that are crumbling or have crumbled, and I think we have to fix both. We can't just fix the physical building, we have to address the hurt that was done to the people and, the animals too. So Annabeth insisting that she has to be the one to use the torches is wrong. They're going to have to do it together. And you know what? I feel good about this theory because my brain is so powerful and I'm the smartest girl in the world. SEJ is, in fact, Sally Jackson. I was wrong about the middle name, though. I should have guessed Estelle. Duh. Right there. I literally texted Julie after I read this, and I was like, is this how you feel after you use your adult brain to make good predictions about a children's book? Because my ego has doubled right now. Chapter 29. I get all the candy. It's Halloween. So maybe we're just going to abandon this mission and go trick-or-treating. Sally Jackson, the woman you are. I just love her. Everyone deserves a mom like this who is encouraging and supportive. And Sally is in fact the bite kid that Percy kept seeing. Her parents making her wear glasses because she saw things has me feeling things. If I think too hard about the childhoods of mortals who can see through the mist, I get kind of sad. And honestly, maybe some young demigods too. Seeing things that nobody else cannot be a good time. And this interaction with Hecate is interesting too. Her telling Sally that there's nothing wrong with your sight and the collection of contacts and glasses that she has, implying that putting kids who can see through the mist in glasses they don't actually need is a common thing, and that Hecate encountered enough of them to start a collection. It's also just a weird thing to collect in general. And crazy to think that Sally could have become a witch. Honestly, she should have. Sorry to Percy, but that would have been so cool of her. Then we could have been reading an entirely different story about Sally Jackson at magic school. It's also interesting that she looks at this interaction as being helpful to her in realizing what was happening. Hecate helping her out was truly women supporting women. But Sally has no regrets about not getting to learn magic and instead encourages Percy to help her. So it's really fitting that the first thing Percy says about her in The Lightning Thief is that her name is Sally and she's the best person in the world, because she is. And she even invites them all for dinner when this is over. I did put family dinner on my bingo card, so I hope we do get that. Then we get the whole Eudora backstory, and while I was hoping for confirmed ex-girlfriends with her and Hecate, I still believe it to be implied. Watching her in the water image, suggesting Percy for the pet sitting task to impress her, encouraging Hecate to start the magic school so she wouldn't feel so gloomy. I'm sorry, it's girlfriend behavior. And this theme of letting people make their own choices, even if they're bad ones, is great. And I think we're seeing the different ways of handling those bad decisions after the fact. Almost a crossroads after the fact as well. You can support the people you love / be supported by the people that you love after a bad decision, or it can cause division and conflict. And I think it's an interesting comparison that Percy says Hecate essentially sabotaged herself by doing nothing when the students started fighting, while the other big example we have of someone potentially sabotaging themselves is Grover drinking the potion, perhaps unintentionally, to keep Percy and Annabeth from leaving. Neither really seem intentional, but one came from action and the other came from inaction, and then both were dealt with in opposite ways. And I do love how Eudora gives Percy the whole jar of Jolly Ranchers as he leaves. He deserves that. Chapter 30, we goo up for battle. I don't know what this means, but I hate it. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover are going to do some slugging or whatever that skincare routine is where you, like, essentially just goo up. Goo up with what? I don't know. Vaseline? I don't know. I'm not a skincare girly. I gotta ask Julie. Kind of wild of Percy to go to swim practice when his life is on the line. They also haven't canceled the party, which is wild, but I love canceling plans, so I feel like I would use any excuse to just, like, not go to things. And summoning Peter Stuyvesant feels like a terrible idea. Honestly, summoning the dead at all seems like a bad idea. And for us to not even be calling Nico or Hazel for help or advice, what are we doing here? Actually, are communication lines down between the camps, or does that not start until the Trials of Apollo? That kind of feels like something Percy would mention if they all of a sudden couldn't contact the West Coast at all, but I don't know, can they? And I love how supportive Annabeth and Grover are of Sally possibly becoming a witch. I agree with Grover. She would have crushed that. And this just feels like it's going to go spectacularly wrong with the way Annabeth is talking about how this might be like patching cracks when the support beams are failing, and Percy's worried about his ability to focus on the right thing, and also feeling like he's forgetting something important, which I'm sure he is. And we get a classic Percy ominous line to end this chapter. We're so back! Here it is. File that under the top 10 times Percy was wrong. And I really wonder what he would consider to be the top 10 times he was wrong. Because I think number 1 on the list would be thinking that they could relax after the first great prophecy. Oh, I just made myself a little bit sad with that one. 31. We find some different dead guys. I love the chapter titles that are kind of a callback to an earlier chapter title. It gives Magnus Chase a little bit to me, because a lot of the chapters in that series do that. Honestly, a lot of these books remind me of Magnus Chase. Shorter chapters with goofier titles, and honestly, sometimes Percy in his narration reminds me of Magnus in a way that OG series Percy didn't. I don't know. Anyway, prediction. We summon some dead guys, and Peter Stuyvesant is a jerk. Yeah, I hated that, but love to see Annabeth be a girl boss, but I do not trust this Stuyvesant guy. Is he thinking that she's going to fail because she's a girl, or would he be doing this to anyone who summoned him, is my question. Not a whole lot on this one. I'm just anticipating everything going wrong here. Too many chapters left for this to be the end. 32. Passing the torch works out super well. So this is either our Power of Teamwork chapter, where Annabeth and Percy do this together, or the title is Sarcasm and everything's about to crash and burn. I think either is equally likely. So it's a teamwork chapter and their plans fall apart. Excellent. Annabeth admitting that she made a mistake, and Percy and Grover knowing immediately that if she's swallowing her pride and admitting that, then things are dire. Oh, those fatal flaws be fatal flawing. It hurt to read, but I love angst and drama. And good God, the Persebeth is Persebething in this chapter, really doing the impossible, passing these torches back and forth. And the whole nobody has ever done this before, yeah, but we can, emphasis on the we, because yeah, they are probably the most in sync 17-year-old couple ever after everything that they've been through. And then getting back and taking the torches together to control the repair of the manse, and the fact that it works right up until they try to get rid of the ghosts and Percy passes out. He's clearly been going to the Jason Gray school of being unconscious in this one. 33. We have a good old-fashioned witch burning. Parentheses. It's us. We're the witches. This cannot be anything good. Personally, I kind of hope that they get tied to stakes, and obviously, they'll get out of it before they get actually set on fire, but for the drama, I would love to see them, ready to be burned at the stake. The way that Percy says, "Fortunately, there was Annabeth," that sentence describes a lot of my life, actually. God. When is it my turn to be happy? And now they're going to have to fight some ghosts, but first they get some nectar, and it tastes like candy corn to Percy, which reminds him of trick-or-treating with his mom in their apartment building, and I feared that this would be the candy corn propaganda that I said I'm glad we didn't get a couple chapters ago, but thank God little Percy got a stomachache and swore he'd never eat it again. Don't try to get me to like candy corn. It will not work. Also, this reminds me of when I was a kid reading one of Judy Blume's books. I think maybe Super Fudge. Definitely a book in that series. I don't know which one exactly, but I remember reading about how they were going trick-or-treating inside their apartment building and thinking that that was the coolest thing that I had ever heard in my life. Living in a building with so many people that you could just trick-or-treat inside. I credit that scene with planting the idea of moving to New York when I got older deep in my soul. So glad that Percy got to experience that in real life. It does kind of make me wonder if Percy would romanticize the typical walking around a neighborhood trick-or-treating the way I romanticized apartment building trick-or-treating. Then, just another silly bit that got a chuckle out of me, when Percy says that the dogs snarled in their respective sizes, extra large and child's medium. I don't know why that was funny, but it was. Also saying that Annabeth's hair is starting to look gray in the torchlight. Don't play with me. Rick, if you give me back the gray streaks from this torch situation, I will give you whatever you want forever. And of course Stuyvesant wants to burn down the house and burn them all as witches. Who's surprised he's a jerk? Not me. Him being a child of Hecate, however, that I was not necessarily expecting, but also that's probably on me. This is not my first Riordan rodeo. I know he likes to make historical figures children of gods. Maybe I should have seen this coming. And, for a guy who was very against religious freedom in his colony, it's not exactly shocking that he would be anti-witchcraft. Also, it's very funny to me that his Wikipedia page now includes a little blurb about his role in this book in the pop culture section. He would hate that, and I think it's hilarious. Anyway, I hate that the ghosts have now gotten costumes and started possessing real people. I just really don't see how we can end this on our own, so I'm thinking reinforcements have to come, either Hecate returning early, or probably the guests for the Halloween party that they forgot to cancel. 34. We fight for Hecate and also dead fish. I'm kind of at a loss why there would be dead fish. It feels antithetical to Percy since he's the son of Poseidon and all, like living fish are his jam, unless he's fighting to avenge some fish. If they kill the eels, I'm done. Well, if it isn't the consequences of our own actions. I said chapters ago that this summoning of the dead thing was a terrible idea, but did anyone listen to me? No! I love that Janet the eel calls Percy Seaweed Brain, and he's immediately like, you don't get to call me that. The one constant throughout these books is that only Annabeth gets to use that name, and I love it. And the second Percy called in the eels to the battle, I was thinking, no, they cannot be the dead fish, but it turns out it is just their battle cry, thank God. And I, like Percy, am just not going to ask any questions about how this whole eel thing is possible. I'm just glad that they're here. And it is interesting that Percy cannot talk to possessed horses, apparently. It's interesting in a different way that the horse then ends the chapter by trying to step on his face. Chapter 35. I am saved by my own doofusness. This is just the summary of any Percy Jackson book. I don't really know what to predict. Camp Half-Blood saves the day! Okay, but other than, Connor Stoll, this is the most random assortment of campers. Where's Nico and Will? Where's my boy Malcolm? The choice to make Valentina a camper that is mentioned by name is odd to me because I barely remember who she is. I don't remember the details of Trials of Apollo the way I remember the original series and Heroes of Olympus, but other characters that I remember more are Kayla and Austin and Sherman Yang. Where are they? Is Valentina more important than I remember? Also, Harley's kind of an odd choice. Why did the 8-year-old get an invite to the teenager Halloween party? It's also just kind of strange to me that when the idea of a Halloween party was mentioned, Percy said that Annabeth wanted to make it a haunted house for all their friends. I just assumed that this would mean characters that are also my friends. And I guess the argument can be made that it's fall and a lot of the summer campers would have gone home, but Nico and Will would be at camp, wouldn't they? We could have gotten first reactions to Solangelo. Because I can't remember the timeline exactly, but they would have gotten together sometime this fall, right? In other news, I think that Rick forgot who Clovis's godly parent is because it was definitely Hypnos in Heroes of Olympus, but all of a sudden it's Morpheus. Oh my god, wait, does Clovis have 2 gay godly dads? That would be wild. Though I guess that would make Clovis a god, not a demigod. And at least we get some more Perciveth Torch teamwork because, and I quote, Annabeth and I were more than just 2 people. We were a pair, and when we stood at the crossroads, we did it together. Kill me. Rick just keeps finding new ways to call me single and alone. Then we finally cross the torches and banish the ghosts and have a Halloween party. And you know what? I said the Halloween party was not a good idea. I take back my words now because we would be dead without it. Chapter 36. I skipped the celebration. Is it family dinner time? Didn't Sally say something about dinner when this is all over? Do they ditch their own Halloween party? I hope they don't, because I would not trust Connor Stoll in Hecate's house. Okay, apparently Austin is also here because he's DJing. Why wasn't he mentioned earlier? And Connor brought all the snacks. You know, it's kind of funny that Travis got to just dip out after the first series, but Connor's still here hanging around. It's kind of giving super senior, like the guy who won't leave, like go to college, get a job. I mean, I'm sure it's not actually like that. I'm sure Connor is still camp age, but it's just kind of funny. And this is the most G rated Halloween party of all time, which I get because it's a children's book and also because Harley, who is like 9, is there. But anytime Rick tries to make it seem like camp is squeaky clean with adult supervision, it makes me laugh because in reality, that large group of teenagers would be getting into so many shenanigans, especially a group of teenagers who know that they could die at any moment. You want me to believe that Connor Stoll is only smuggling in sodas? Okay, sure. Then, as all couples do at parties in fictional media, Annabeth and Percy sneak off to be alone, but again, in a G-rated way. They talk about how Annabeth's pride almost got them all killed, and then we get a callback to the hummus hubris joke from Sea of Monsters, which is very important to me, because that's one of my favorite jokes in the whole series. And I like how Percy says they're a good team because they make each other's fatal flaws into slightly less fatal flaws, because I do think that's true. Like, I think Annabeth in this book admitting that she made a mistake and needed help was huge, and she wouldn't have done that if not for how comfortable she is with Percy and Grover. And then I think that with Percy it's a little bit different because the more important Annabeth gets to him, the more likely it is that he'll try to sacrifice the end goal to save her. But also, there's been more times where he thinks, okay, Annabeth would kill me if I save her instead of doing the necessary thing. So, it could go either way. But generally, I think with Percy knowing her and knowing what she would want, that makes him do the right thing and makes his fatal flaw less fatal. But, could also make it even more fatal. Annabeth also tells him that he's a pretty smart guy. And I wish Annabeth would say more nice things like this to Percy. He very clearly likes the teasing from her, but I also think he needs a little affirmation sometimes. Or a lot of affirmation. Boy's lack of self-esteem is a little concerning. And they plan to talk to Hecate, and Percy gives her and Grover the option to bow out, which, of course, they do not. And then they very much do not go back to the party, and probably sit on the terrace and make out for a while because that feels right. Chapter 37, I Play with Purple Fire. We have referenced a flaming purple armadillo too many times at this point for me to not think of that when the chapter title mentions purple fire. Maybe that has something to do with what's about to happen. I swear, if someone gets turned into another animal, that might be too much for me. Okay, Hecate arriving home at 5:32 feels right, because that is exactly what time my alarm is set for, 5:32, because then I get to sleep for 2 extra minutes and it feels like a treat. And Hecate likes Nope and will let him stay, thank God. She also finds one of Connor Stoll's left behind soda bottles and pretends like she's mad, but then is like, JK, you absolutely should have a party on my holiest of nights, which, I mean, gotta give Annabeth some credit. That's exactly how she said she would react when she mentioned throwing the party at Hecate's in the first place. Once again, Annabeth's hobbies include knowing things and being right. And then he gets the letter. Thank God. It just says, I recommend Percy Jackson for things. So Percy could leave, but he's so darn noble and heroic that he knows he has to be honest about what happened this week and try to fix things, not just on the surface level. And Hecate at least agrees to hear him out, so that's a win. Chapter 38, I accidentally liquefy my guidance counselor. That just feels like a normal Naiad thing, but the reference to the very first chapter, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher, does not go unnoticed. You absolutely cannot tell me that Eudora is not in love with Hecate. What do you mean she spent a long time caressing the words on the recommendation letter looking for any sign that Hecate mentioned her? That is classic sapphic yearning. And when Percy tells her that Hecate agreed to reopen the school, she becomes a puddle. And it did give me a giggle that Percy says he doesn't know what to do because he's not a lifeguard. His job is just ocean. Which is good, because I feel like Percabeth's general vibe in Percy's head is, she's everything, I'm just Ken. Because, again, no self-esteem. And I love that Eudora is going to go back to working for Hecate in the magic school. That's lovely. And then Sally and Percy get to chat again, and I just love her. The way she compliments him for leaving things better than he found them for the characters involved, and how that's a very Percy thing to do. Ugh, I'm emotional. And queen behavior that she's making this boy do his own laundry before he goes off to college. That's what I like to see. Too many boys go off to college with no idea how to do anything, but Sally Jackson wouldn't do that. She still makes her son, the literal 2-time savior of the world, do chores. And that is iconic. 39. I get my favorite dessert. My real guess is that they have blue cookies. My cheesy guess is that my favorite dessert is a kiss from Annabeth. I love these little domestic moments. I don't even need a quest in the third one. I would just read a book about family dinners at the Jacksons. Chiron subbing for Paul is incredible. What's not incredible is Sally saying that Percy should have picked her up some things on his trip through the lingerie store. Hated that. Ma'am, that's your son. And also, there's only one girl he'd want to be picking things up for there. What? Who said that? No. He'd be too embarrassed. And Juniper's little moment to reassure Grover that he won't get left behind when Percy and Annabeth go to California with the whole, your roots are where you're planted and these are Percy and Annabeth's roots. I'll cry right now. And I shouldn't have doubted that Rick would go for the cheese at the end, because Annabeth does kiss him and he does say it's better than any dessert, and of course much better than candy corn. Thank God we have made it through this book without candy corn propaganda. Alright, so some final thoughts. I feel pretty similarly about this one that I did with Chalice of the Gods. It's cute, it's fun, it's a more lighthearted adventure with lower stakes, and it's so nostalgic in the best way. I've seen people online calling it canon fanfiction, and that's really what it feels like. Like, it's just fun. And I do enjoy the way that we seem to be exploring themes that are really relevant for people approaching a really big change in their lives, the way Percy and Annabeth are as they're about to go off to college. I liked the getting older theme in Chalice, I liked the crossroads and choices theme here, and I really like how the takeaway message seemed to be that you have to make your own choices even if they're wrong, but also that when they're wrong, the people who love you will be there to help you figure it out. I think that's a great lesson for a high school senior to walk away with as they head off to college. Thanks for letting me yap for way too long as I read. This was an interesting experience for me because I read a little differently for the podcast than I do for enjoyment, and I've never done podcast reading for my first time reading a book, but I do think I miss less things this way instead of speed reading the way I usually do, so it was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening, and catch you next week for some more Battle of the Labyrinth. In the meantime, you can find us on social medias at DemigodDebutPod. Bye!